Hello, everybody. Welcome to 1v1 Bosch Games. It's View Show. I'm your host this episode, Mr. Eddie V, aka That Retro Code. Yes. Hopefully, you guys got to enjoy our pilot episode and our first episode, where my special guest, our leader, head honcho of Bosch Games. Not only is he a producer and a content creator, he's an all-around loving dad. A person who could give those jokes and give great impressions. He's such a Ninja Turtle. Which one? Who knows? Maybe we'll find out in this conversation. Everybody, please welcome Mr. Corey Dirrig. Hi.
Hello, happy to be here. This is my first time. And, no, I'm just kidding.
Yes. So, like I said, hopefully you guys got to check out the first episode. And this episode right here, I'm going to be talking to Corey to kind of like see why he got into podcasting, why he makes the content that he creates. Yes, maybe we'll find out who his favorite Ninja Turtle is and everything. And kind of talk about the history and his beginnings. So, Corey, I kind of want to start off with, as a kid, how did you get into the gaming sphere, I should say?
Oh boy. Well, I started playing games when I probably told the story a few times on content that we've done over the years, but the first time I ever played a game, my dad brought home an Atari 2600 and a few games. I think it was like Pac-Man and Combat and games like that. And the one game that he brought home, I remember it vividly, and it's like one of my first memories in general, let alone gaming memories. But he brought home Kaboom, which is an Activision kind of. The whole premise of the game is you control a basket, like a basket with the joystick, and you literally just move it left to right to catch the bombs because there's a burglar on top of a building dropping bombs, and the whole point of the game is just to catch the bombs. And if you don't catch them, I think you get 3 misses and you have to start over. Right? It's a very simple game, but I remember sitting on the floor of my parents' bedroom with my dad, cross-legged, just kind of sitting there and playing Kaboom with him. And that was the first time I had really played a game. So like I've always just kind of since then really it's just been fascinated with games. And then I enjoyed that so much that my grandma ended up getting me a Game Boy for my birthday in 1989 with Tetris and boxing and Super Mario Land. Those were my first 3 games. And let me tell you what, I had no idea how to play Tetris when I was 3 years old. I thought the whole thing was like the blocks were dropping, and I thought the whole point of the game was to build like a tower, right? As a 3-year-old, like you play with blocks and you build things with the blocks. So I thought like these blocks were falling and you had to like fit them together to make buildings, and I didn't understand. Like it took me a long time to realize that like when you make a line, they disappear and it drops, right? So yeah, that was kind of my first gaming memory, really, was Tetris and Kaboom. And one of those games is still one of my favorite games of all time, and the other one is a nice memory. I'll let the listeners figure out which one is which.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but yeah, that's kind of, the rest is history, clearly. Because this is where we're at now, 30 years later.
Well, growing up, it kind of sounds like you been a big Nintendo fan, and you jump here or there with Sony and with Sega and everything.
Well, the funny thing is, okay, is like I got a Game Boy, right? and then I would always my cousin Keith always introduced me to games.
Mhm.
About 11 years older than me, and I don't have any siblings, so he was always like my older, like I always looked up to him as like a brother, because we were both only children, and we kind of were always like, my mom was always watching him and stuff. So he would always introduce me to games, right? And when he got a Sega Genesis, he gave me his NES. Well, when he got a Super Nintendo, he gave me his Genesis. So I was a Nintendo kid until I got a Genesis, and then I was a Sega kid. And that whole generation, like, I had a Genesis, and I went over to my friend's house to play Super Nintendo, and they would come over and play Genesis. That's just how it was. I was the Sega kid. It's like all my friends had Super Nintendos, but I was a Sega kid. So, not saying like Genesis was bad or anything, but like, there's no Mario Kart equivalent on Genesis, right? I mean, it was Sonic, right? I mean, but
Well, we have retro racing, but
yeah, no, pass.
I just said you had it. Doesn't mean.
I mean, I would rather play Enduro Racer on the Master System.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I do have a brother and have a sister. He was the Sega kid. I was the Nintendo kid. And I actually jumped out of Nintendo to get a TurboGrafx 16.
Ooh.
So, at that time, I ended up owning two consoles, the Super Nintendo and the TurboGrafx 16. And my brother had the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, at the time, like, I didn't really like I knew like systems existed, right? But I didn't know, like, I wasn't in the mind space of like, oh, well, this is the next generation of systems, right? I just, like, I always had two consoles, right? And it was always like my NES and Genesis were always hooked up together, and I always played them whenever I wanted, right? And I never. I remember the very first time I kind of realized like generations existed. I got EGM like everybody else. I got Nintendo Power like everybody else, and like I always wanted a Super Nintendo. Like I was like, I always wanted a Super Nintendo. And when they started showing Nintendo 64 games in Nintendo Power, I really wanted a Nintendo 64, but I also realized that the Super Nintendo was going to be really cheap, and the really cheap Super Nintendo came with the Super Mario All-Stars plus World Kart, and it was like, I think Toys R Us had it for like $89 or something stupid.
Yeah.
And I was trying to convince myself that I wanted that Super Nintendo, but I never had a Super Nintendo growing up. Like, I just never had one. So, like, you know, we're doing the retro game show, you know, and it's trying to have you kind of walk me through these games that I missed growing up, because
yes,
I mean, I had got games, but it was that thing where, like, my parents always bought the games that they thought I would want. Like, I had a lot of Disney games, I had a lot of Ninja Turtles games, and I mean, I had all the Marios and stuff, but I never had Zelda, I never had Metroid, I never had, like, the Nintendo games, right? Like, the ones that everybody talks about. I never had the Final Fantasy games, I never had Dragon Warrior. Like, I just never had any of these games, you know? It was always about Ninja Turtles, and you know, I still think the Genesis version of Ninja Turtles is one of the best Turtles games that nobody talks about in like Hyperstone Heist, which is, I mean, it's basically Turtles in Time with a quote different story and like a couple new levels, a couple remix levels or whatever. But like, I still think that is a great version of Ninja Turtles, right? And they had like comic mode where the turtles were the colors that they were in the comic books, and
Yes.
they had a bunch of different modes that you could play. Like, it was cool. Like, it was a really cool game that nobody talks about.
Which is funny because I used to own Harvestone Heist and I own Tournament Fighters for the Sega Genesis.
Yeah, I have Tournament Fighters for Sega Genesis, and like the weird thing is like the Super Nintendo version is a different version than the Sega version.
Yes.
But then like what I found
And
out,
it was always $30 cheaper.
Yeah.
Those games are always $20 on Sega Genesis.
Yeah, and
compared to the 50 on Super NES.
yeah, and like I found out like very recently through you that there was an NES version of Tournament Fighters, and it's like really bad.
Yeah.
But like up until the Nintendo 64, I always had two consoles, and that was it until the Nintendo 64 is when I really kind of that's when I really started paying attention to games, right? And like really diving into like, oh, this game's coming out. When is this game coming out? And I always remember the Nintendo Power section, the pack watch, which is like, these are the games, the upcoming games, and here's screenshots for like Zelda 64 and Mario 64 and all these games like that. And it was just, I don't know, man, it was a good time. I just remember all that just so well.
When it came to Christmas time, did you ever get a new game? It just disappeared because I always do that.
Every year.
My mom got me Mega Man 2. She didn't see me for days. I came for school and dinner and stuff, but I worked on that game dedicated.
I mean, I think the first time I really did that was for Super Mario 64. I remember doing it a couple times because I got, the Turtles arcade game for Christmas one year for NES, and then I like the following year I think I got Fall of the Foot Clan for Game Boy, and then Genesis. I think I did it for Rocket Knight Adventures, and I did it for Rocket Knight Adventures. If you guys don't know what that is, you don't know what you're missing. It is a game that existed on Genesis.
Oh, Sega Genesis.
They actually remade it for Xbox Live Arcade on the 360, and it's backwards compatible. So I might be playing that for the backlog challenge.
They're probably not selling it because I never got to play it.
It's really pretty game, but it's not very good. I'm not gonna lie to you. But there were a couple games that I did that for, but I was always more into like, I always got a lot of action figures for Christmas, like Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers. Like, those were the two things that I was really into, and like those are things that you can play with while people are in the room. So I never like disappeared on Christmas. After dinner or something, I would like go upstairs with my cousins and stuff and show them my new games. But I was never like, I wasn't really allowed to disappear, because family's coming over, you gotta spend time with family, whatever. But the first time I really remember doing that was when I got my Nintendo 64 for Christmas, and it was that Christmas. There's three very vivid memories that I have of getting consoles, right? For holidays and stuff, and one was when I got Game Boy. Like, that's something I remember very, very fondly. And then the Nintendo 64, it was weird because I didn't think I was getting it, right? Like, I just kind of assumed, because Nintendo 64 was really hard to find, because that's something Nintendo used to be very good at, was like false scarcity, and like really releasing a certain number of consoles to make it look like the console was more popular than it really was, right? That's something that they were known for all the way up through the Wii, right? And I just assumed that I wasn't getting a Nintendo 64, and I thought at most I would be getting a Super Nintendo, because I had talked to my parents about a Super Nintendo, and I really wanted Donkey Kong Country and Mario World and Turtles in Time were like the three games on my list. So I opened all my gifts, and then my grandma came over, and I was still opening my gifts, and I got Super Mario 64 for Christmas, and I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? I don't have a Nintendo 64, and I was like kind of excited, but I was also like, did they just see Nintendo on the box and just assume that it would work on my NES or something? Like I wasn't sure. And so I was like trying to ask my mom without like being a jerk kid, right? And like I remember my grandma brought in all of her gifts, and we opened all her gifts, and it was like, okay, well, Christmas is over. I got a Nintendo 64 game, no Nintendo 64, whatever, and I went on playing with something, and my grandma was like, "There's one more gift in the trunk," and it was like this big square box, and I was like, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't even think it was for me. Like I thought it was a big box for my parents, and she told me to go ahead and open it. It was a Nintendo 64, and I barely got the wrapping paper off the box before I got the system out, and I poked it up to my parents' TV and was playing Super Mario 64. It was awesome. It was probably my favorite Christmas by far. Like that, just in terms of memories and stuff. But like when Nintendo 64 came out, that's when I like really started paying attention to like the industry, and like looking at like there's a website called Cheap Planet that I went to, and I was like looking up codes and writing stuff down and putting like codes in like where the manuals go in the boxes, and just really like getting invested,
Yes.
So that's kind of like, I guess, where you'd say I started. I mean, started gaming when I was 3, but when I really started paying attention was like 10, which I guess is like when kids really start paying attention to stuff like that, right? Because like I mean, like, because that's when you like start asking for stuff that you really like. That's when you get invested in like cartoons and like really invested.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, like I was invested in cartoons, but video games were like my livelihood. Like the video games were my friends, were my best friends, and so of course, like reading gaming magazines and going to the mall, and my mom giving me $1 while she shopping at JCPenney, like anything to get rid of me.
Hey man, we went to Big Lots like every Saturday, and they had a Ninja Turtles cabinet and a Contra cabinet in the Big Lots, and my mom would just leave me there while she went and shopped at Big Lots. Like I just remember I sent you a picture. Like I was going through some stuff at my parents' house, and I found that picture of me in like a Halloween costume playing Contra. Yes. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But yeah, it's I like it's always really hard to tell people that don't play a lot of games like how invested you are in games, and like I still feel like as popular as games are now, like it still feels like a niche thing, where like it still feels like, at least around here, like my wife watches a lot of TV. Whoops. But it doesn't battle an eye when you watch like 2 or 3 hours of TV, but like it still feels like that thing is like, how can you play that for that long? And it's only been like an hour, and it's like, you just don't get it. Yeah,
it's funny because like, you mentioned as a kid, you got action figures. I never asked for any action figures, because if it wasn't video games, clothes was whatever. My love was into watching music videos, and of course Michael Jackson was a big inspiration. But every time I saw a Janet Jackson video, I would just watch it for like every time she came on and I watched it, I was mesmerized. Like I would try to do all her dance steps. There's a video called The Pleasure Principle where she kicks down the chair. I would kick down the vacuum cleaner and then try to bring it up and stuff. Like music videos were kind of my representation of action heroes. Cause like if you showed it to me and it was a hit song or it was just a song that I could fall in love with or anything or just hear, I will run to it. I would be like, I need this video. Show me this video. And I was a kid, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so I kind of want to ask you before we get into the content creation thing. You're also an artist. Um, how did you get into art? Did it start with you drawing as a kid? I know for me, uh, it was always looking at EGM's advertisements and drawing the art thing. Anything that was done by pencil or anything or by
Hmm.
hand, I used to always try to draw. And one vivid memory, there's like a tiger monk in Breath of Fire 2, I think, for Super Nintendo or Breath of Fire, and I will always try to draw him. Because I just used to love Capcom and Konami's artwork. More of Capcom's artwork in the ads. But where did it start for you with art?
Man, I don't really know where it started. I like, I know my parents would like give me crayons and stuff on to color
Mhm.
on the back of placemats and stuff at restaurants, and you know, I was drawing a little bit in terms of like what I saw on like Disney movies and you know, some games that I had already, like I would draw the box art of the games and stuff. I still have a lot of that, by the way. I'll send you some the next time I'm over at my parents. But like, I drew the Sonic 2 box art when I was like 7 or something, and it's really bad. It's
Nice.
really bad. But like, you know, I was just always drawing, and then I ended up going to like art classes and stuff. Like outside of school, like it was like an after school activity. I went 2 days a week to take art lessons and stuff, and you know, I felt like art was kind of like, I mean, like kind of like you. I didn't really have a lot of friends growing up. Like I had like one good friend growing up, and you know, we're still friends to this day. Although I haven't seen him for a few like probably since this summer. You know, Brian, who I used to do the Destiny podcast with.
Yes.
We still keep in touch. We've known each other literally since we were born. Like our parents were pregnant together and everything. Like it was literally one of those things. But I never really had a lot of friends growing up, and art was kind of the way. Art in like Disney movies and you know, those were like kind of the things that kept me besides video games. Those were just kind of like the things that I liked to do because I didn't really have a lot of friends. And you know, there was like the neighborhood friends that you played with, but like they're not really like your quote unquote real friends. They're just kids in the neighborhood, and you
Yes.
know, back then we didn't have the internet you know, cell phones or anything to text each other or chat with or anything. So like we would literally go outside and ride our bikes around the block and play with the neighborhood kids, or you know, play in the backyard or whatever. And but like to me, art and games and Disney movies were like, I don't know if escape is the right word, but it really helped me like kind of focus on things that I really enjoy doing. And of course I was always encouraged to do other things besides those things, but like it never, like I played sports and stuff, but like I never really like, I liked sports, but I didn't really like love them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just, art was always a way that I could just kind of like feel comfortable, you know, and it helped me focus on things. It helped me, like I would always, when I couldn't, I would always draw, and my mom always told me this, like I'd always do my best work when I was tired. And I would always, it always helped me focus and like relax, because I was always, because I didn't have friends, I was always kind of like anxious, you know,
Hmm.
that like maybe I was doing something wrong, or, you know, maybe like, you know what I mean? Like I just always kind of felt anxious, and it always like calmed me down and helped me focus and calmed my mind down.
Drawing, definitely for me, it kept me focused because it kept me zoned in, and it kept me focused on continue to work, continue to get this look, to like kind of somewhat develop your skill. But it was just always fun. It always just, and captured me and everything. Um, so so yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um,
And like,
right.
I have stuff up on my Facebook page for like stuff that I've drawn recently.
Mhm.
Well, recently in quotes. I haven't really done anything in years. I would that's something that, 2020, besides catching up on games that I missed, like that's something I want to get back into is drawing. I took a stab at painting for a while, and it was good, but like I don't know if I really like drawing is like what I really like to do, and I would really like to get back to just drawing, because that was something that if there's one thing in this life that I truly miss doing is drawing, and like when you only have a couple hours a night after, because like I have a 1.5 year old and a wife and a family to attend to, and like I don't
Mhm.
really have the time to do everything I want to do. So like to relax, I've been playing games, but something I really do want to do is draw.
It's funny that you mentioned that you want to get back into drawing. I put on my Twitter post, uh, I want to get back into songwriting.
Yeah, I
Like
saw that.
that's one of the things that I kind of want to get back into. Um, so we're gonna skip a little bit ahead. We're gonna return to some things, but you started off creating digital nurse advocate, better known as DNA. How did that all come about? Like, how did that foundation start off?
Well, I actually started doing stuff before DNA. I started like I for a long time I had always wanted to do something on the internet, like whether it was writing or making videos or something, and I had actually planned on doing that with someone as far back as 2009 ish,
Mm,
right? But this person I was really close to, and there's a podcast where I talk about this story, but she passed away, and I just kind of put it on hold, right? It was just kind of like a something I put on hold for a while, and I never really thought I would ever go back to it because I was busy. I was trying to do a lot of different things. I was working a lot, and I just never did it, right? And
mhm,
then I started listening to more and more podcasts around 2013, I want to say, because it kind of like, again, I listen to a lot of podcasts to keep me focused and less anxious, and I don't know what it is about podcasts that just keep me, you know. And I know it probably doesn't sound like this from a podcast that we do or anything, but like I'm a really kind of like anxious, nervous person. Like I
mhm.
always have to be fidgeting or doing something, or you know, I have to be doing something, and like if I'm not doing something or it's not being done right or something, I get really anxious and really like nervous and stressed out about it, which but our listeners might not know, right? And like podcasts are something that just kind of keep me grounded, I would say.
Yeah.
And so in 2013, I was listening to like Game Scoop and Podcast Beyond and Giant Bomb stuff and Game Inform show. Like I was listening to started listening to all these podcasts because like Game Inform was advertising it in their magazine. IGN, it's all over IGN all the time, right? Those shows. I think it was called Three Red Lights at the time, the Xbox show. It's unlocked now, but and then I just kept listening, and I was like, I would really like to do this at some point, but I don't know who I would do this with. I don't know, whatever. And I started coming up with little ideas, and then I was in a really bad relationship and before I met my wife, and I just kind of like put it all on hold again. It's funny how things kind of just
work out.
Yeah. And then I met my wife, and like after about 6 or 7 months of dating my wife, like I started picking that idea back up again, right? And I started writing a little bit, and then I was like, I still really want to do something like videos or podcasting or something. And I was writing down ideas. I would have little notes on my phone, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think what really pushed me over the edge to do it, which I know a lot of people did it around the same time, and some people are still going, some people are not, sadly. But when that whole group from IGN left to form Kind of Funny, I was like, all right, I need to do something because, I need to do something creative, and they're leaving their big fancy jobs at IGN to do their own thing, which takes a lot of courage. And I'm like, I need to do something. So that kind of like pushed me over the edge. That and like the Giant Bomb Game of the Year stuff that year, they were doing a lot of stuff. I'm like, I want to do stuff like that. So I went on WordPress and bought a domain and called it I was like, I'm going to do a podcast called the D-Pad Gamescast, because that sounds not generic at all and not probably taken by 47 other people on the internet. So I started writing and started doing like just like some news type things and kind of, doing some, I tried my hand at some reviews. I tried some news stories. I did, and I was going to only focus on Nintendo stuff, right? That was like my idea. And then I met a few people, and somebody from work wanted to do a podcast too because he was trying to get into Twitch streaming at the time. And we met a couple other people on the internet, and hold on. Before that, I'm going to give a shout out to Life of Gaming podcast. I don't think they're doing episodes anymore. I wish they were, but they aren't. And I know James does some streaming on Mixer. I know Josh, he was doing Nindy Nation for a while. I don't know if that show's still going or not.
Nindy Nation is still going, but I don't know if Josh is still on it.
Yeah. Okay. I knew he was doing some stuff, but I know he's been quiet too. But when they were doing Life of Gaming, I was on their 3rd episode for this D-pad stuff, and they invited me on. They said, "Hey, do you want a podcast?" I'm like, "Sure, but I don't really know what I'm doing." And they're like, "It's okay, you can come on." And that episode, you can go find it if you want. It was really bad. Like, they weren't bad. I was bad. And I was like, oh geez, I'm not fit to podcast at all. And then like, I was like, well, maybe if I just did it with somebody that I knew, right? Like that I was comfortable with. Cause like I had only talked to them the same way you and I met. I had only commented on stuff in Facebook groups that they were in. Right. And
yes.
Then I asked somebody that I worked with if he wanted to host, and I would just kind of like we do for Boss Rush, like he hosted and I was kind of like the second man on the show, right? And we did 2 episodes of D-Pad Gamescast, and then we're going to DNA actually started as like an internet collaboration between us and Life of Gaming, and there's a YouTuber from Canada that was going to be a part of it, and then Bobby Pauls, who's the Nintendo guru. I know Todd has him on Secret Friends a lot.
Yeah.
It was going to be like this weird amalgamation of people doing. We were trying to come up with a name, and James is actually the person that came up with Digital Nerd Advocates, and because we wanted to do something with like gaming is in our DNA, whatever, like that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
we were already set to do it, and then some things happened and everything kind of fell apart, but we ended up keeping the name because and we got kind of okayed it with everybody just to because I didn't want everybody to be mad if we just kind of took the name that everybody came up with to do, right, and everybody kind of went their own separate ways. But then we did 30 episodes of the DNA podcast, and we had Nerd Overdrive on, and this is one of their favorite stories to tell, where the guy that I used to do it with kind of got we actually were like getting pretty big on the DNA podcast. Like we were like lining up like some sponsors and stuff, like I mean not real sponsors, but like local stuff, and trying to get some things going, and thought we were like gonna, and he got kind of like belligerently drunk on a live show, and I mean, young kids, whatever, you do what you need to do, right? Like I mean, we've all been there, we've all done stupid stuff, but like the two sponsors we had lined up pulled out, and we kind of lost some steam there and kind of hit reset on the whole thing, and he ended up leaving, and then DNA just kind of hit a reset. So that's kind of, and then that's when like the Destiny podcast kind of started. Maybe it started a little bit before then, but we had a very successful Destiny podcast called DNA Weekly Strike, which was for you vanilla Destiny players. The weekly strike was like the harder strike. It was kind of like you had your normal strikes, and then you had your nightfalls, and then the weekly, what everybody called the weekly strike, was like the one in the middle. It was like medium difficulty, right? Where if nightfall was hard and normal strikes were normal, this was like medium difficulty. So we kind of had to play off of that, and it was actually really successful. We had, I think our highest number of downloads was like in the 30,000s at one point.
Nice.
Like it was big. Like it was up there with like Guardian Radio and Ghost Stories and Fireteam Chat. I mean, IGN's shows probably like, they probably have like millions of downloads, but you know what I mean? Like it was like when you typed in Destiny podcast, it was up there with those shows, and it was really exciting. And then DNA, we kind of did our thing, and long story short, we made a lot of like YouTube content, and then Nerds Gone Rogue started as a community show, which we kind of discussed on the last episode with yours, because that Nerds Gone Rogue and Nintendo Power Block kind of started around the same time in terms of like the directions we wanted to go with community stuff. And the sad thing about DNA is like we were starting to get the ball rolling in terms of like finally getting to a point where like we thought, hey, we can become bigger if we like think of some stuff. And it got to a point where like I feel like everybody was just burnt out on the content we were making, and people kind of like lost interest, and it kind of fell apart, and it kind of made me sad for a while, and I'm not trying to sit here and like blame anybody, right? Like it just happens, people get burned out, don't want to do it anymore, schedules change, interests change, and I'm still friends with all of them, right? Like Joey and I still hang out once in a while. Brian and I still hang out once in a while. I think Cameron is actually like doing like short film stuff out west now, which is exciting for him. Like but I didn't really know what to do. And so my focus turned to Nerds Gone Rogue and Nintendo Power Block, right? And then the history of Nerds Gone Rogue, you guys can just go check it out on the website or whatever. But recently we kind of closed that chapter, kind of closed up Nerds Gone Rogue kind of abruptly, I would say. Some things happened that I don't really want to talk about out loud, to be just honest about it. But focusing on Boss Rush now, and here we are, and this is where we're at now.
Yes.
But like DNA and Nerds Gone Rogue, I feel like personally, I know you and I have kind of grown to be really good friends and kind of grown as content creators there. But like, I feel like DNA and Nerds Gone Rogue, I learned a lot about podcasting and content creating, and just from a design perspective, a production perspective, which is like, in the next couple weeks, I'm hoping, by the time you hear this, I'm hoping our live shows will be back up, because I'm trying to work on some things here to get it all set up. But like, I really feel like we learned a lot in terms of production and ideas, and we tried a lot of things that, a lot of it didn't pan out, but some of it did, like, pod and play or squad goals or Royale with cheese. Like, we had a lot of good ideas, I feel like, and a lot of refinement, I feel like. And I feel like,
yes,
I feel like you and I in particular, and even, Jesse and even Ray to an extent, have kind of honed those things that we've learned over the years, whether together or separately or whatever. And really, we have a good focus and a good foundation for Boss Rush that just like grew out of the stuff that we were doing for DNA and NGR, right? And I'm still really proud of all the work that we've done over the years.
If you, when I think about it and I look at it, all the years of experience that I have with hosting and podcasting and getting written content and stuff, and all the years that you've been editing things and, designing like just thumbnails and, the website, the years that Jesse, as long as we know him, how his love and passion for music, how that has evolved and grown. And, me and Ray coming on board on how his dream of being a streamer, and just seeing how he affects people in a very positive manner. It's just like, this is all coming together, and it takes years of experience. It takes years to build this up. And I know on last episode I mentioned about failures. Like sometimes failures can bring success. I don't think nothing that we did brought us failure or anything. Some things didn't work out. Some people might see that as failure, but throughout the years we learned, we grew, and through every ups and downs that we have. I think about when you are a content creator, you have to grow. And I think definitely for you, from being a kid playing games and drawing, from doing DNA, doing Nerds Gone Rogue, now Boss Rush Games, and even NX, you grew, and you, like you said, you didn't know what you was doing when you first podcasting. Nobody knows what to do when you doing stuff for the first time. Yeah. But you continue to go. You find you'll see some faults and everything, but you always will learn it, and you continue to go ahead and grow. Because not everybody could be a host. Trust me, before I even did any kind of hosting on Optional Opinion or even had that podcast, I had to MC a church event. I've never been on the mic to event a whole service at church. And that was a big eye opener. But I got comfortable doing it, and how I'd be like, "Hey, everybody, welcome to Nintendo Power Block," or "Welcome to Boss Rush." Like being that excited, that's the excitement that I learned from being an MC at a church event. You know, and I had to learn that. There's no way people could teach you things. You just sometimes have to learn it.
Yeah, and I still think like I don't know. I still think me hosting Nintendo Power Block is a bad idea, but I do it because like I I like to host that show. I like that show. That show, in the grand scheme of things, that show is my baby. It's the show that it's just the thing that I love the most out of everything that we've ever done. And that's not to say that I didn't like Nerds Gone Rogue or DNA or Boss Rush, right? Like I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like I host it because I love it, and like that every time I host the show, I feel like it's giving me skills that I don't have, and I still feel that way after 100 and what by the time this goes up, like 180 episodes in, and I still feel like I'm not a good host, but at the same time, it's like I don't really care because like I'm excited when I open the show and the conversations we have about Nintendo make me excited about it, and I still feel like I'm better at playing off of you and Jesse and Ray, and I still feel that way. I know where everybody's strength lies, right? And that's something that I feel. And all the years I've been doing this, I feel like that's the thing that I've learned the most is like I know what people's strengths are, and that's why like during the run of Nerds Gone Rogue, that's why Matt started hosting, right? Because like he's better at that than I am. I am better at the production side of it, and playing off and being the second or third chair or whatever somebody needs me to be, right? Like that's my strength, I feel like Nintendo Power Block is the show where I can kind of break out from my strength and just kind of like play around with stuff. The last year or so I've played around with different intros or whatever, but I still have one that just works for me as a host, right? And I'm okay with it. I think I wanted to change it up a little bit because I felt like it was too formal or too ripping off other people's shows, but like at the end of the day I was just like, look, you have to open the show. It's not a big deal. Just do it. The housekeeping stuff you have to do, all these things are just things that you need to get through to get to the real meat of the show. And like, a lot of people just kind of like glaze over the beginning of shows anyway, right? Like even when you listen to like IGN's shows or Giant Bomb's shows or the Game Informer show, like the intro, like the first 2 or 3 minutes are like, this is what we're going to talk about on the show, or this is where you can find us or whatever, right? Like people kind of just glaze over because they know that stuff's coming. And like, that's kind of where I've just fallen on Nintendo Power Block, where I'm like, I'll just get through this. If we have new listeners, they can pick it up. All the links are in the bios, all that kind of thing. So,
and I know for me, when I host, it's just like I have to be energetic and I got to keep it hyped and stuff.
Yeah, which is also like really hard for me to do. I mean, it's easier now, but like probably like 5 or 6 episodes of Nintendo Power Block before I moved, I had to be really quiet. And it's really hard, like when I know I have to be energetic and excited about something, like if it's in my head that I have to be quiet because my kid and my office share the same wall, like it's really hard for me to get in a mindset of hosting, because when you are hosting, you have to have the energy, you have to have you have to project your voice, you have to be the excitement for the rest of the team, right? And
yes,
it's very hard when you have to intro a show like this because there's a baby sleeping behind you, and it's like I said, I've learned a lot from Nintendo Power Block. I've learned a lot about myself personally through the different stages of the stuff I've been doing on the internet. And I still have stuff to learn. I put it in my Game of the Year piece I wrote on Boss Rush games. Like, last 2019 was a roller coaster kind of whirlwind year of negativity and positivity, and I hope what happened with Nerds Gone Rogue. Like, I hope I can learn from that situation, and really grow as a leader and a teammate through Boss Rush.
And it's funny we all in NGR that because of you doing a lot of work, that kind of got me into wanting to edit, want to put content together, wanted to be like, if Corey could do it, I could do it. I just need to see a program. Oh, there's a program that could do it. Okay, let me make this content. Let me get into this. And then realize I'm just like, man, the work that he puts into this on a daily basis is, it takes a lot of work, but it's encouraging when you get it right and you put it out there and you just see it. And even if no one, like 1 or 2 views or something, you just be like, I did that. I'm like, and it was because of kind of like of you. I feel like encouraged to be like, I want to help out. Every time me and Jesse talk about his music a lot, and we have our disagreements and agreements, but I hear something and I pinpoint it, and I'm just like, I don't know if my opinion matters or anything, but I want to try to bring out the best out of you, and if I could bring that out, I think other people will see it, and I kind of want that too. I want people to bring out the best out of me, and I'm trying.
Yeah.
Hopefully in 2020, that if something is not right or not just looking good, that you be like, you know what, E, we need to work on this because I know you could do better. And
I mean, it's not just like the video editing stuff where, like, how many times did I try to perfect the Nerds Gone Rogue logo, right? Or the POW Block logo, or, how many times did I send you logos back and forth for the Boss Rush logo, which I think is like,
yes,
just from a design perspective, I think it is an excellent logo. It's clean, it's modern, it shows off what we're about, just in like this one little kind of square logo. I think it shows off everything that we are. It's like, okay, it's bold, it's got the controller hidden in there, right? But it's not really like plastered on it. I think it's just, I love our logo, but like, you look at how many times did I tweak the Nerds Gone Rogue logo? How many times did I tweak the POW Block logo? The only logo I never really tweaked after it was done was the Arsenal X logo, which I still think is like, it's not like the sexiest logo, but I still think it's like the coolest logo we've ever had, right? Just because like it's the big bold X from, like, I tried to model it after the top of the original Xbox, where it's like this big ugly just X with the lines coming out of it, right? That, the original Xbox, for those who've never seen one, which I don't know how you haven't seen one, but it had like them nasty lines coming off of the X because that's where the ventilation was. And like, I tried to model our Arsenal X logo after that, and I think it's like, it might not be the cleanest or prettiest logo, but it is the coolest logo I think we've ever had, just from that perspective. And that's the kind of thing that me and you have, that even though there are some things that we agree and disagree, it was just like, I'm seeing it. I'm like, I wanted to pop, and I just wanted to visually stand out and stuff. And it's just like, what you was seeing is something I wasn't seeing, and I was just like, okay, now that that's cleared up and I see it, okay, go ahead and do it. And I because there's something about when it comes to art, I love when it stands out, and I love when it feels visually creative, and it's just it has a statement to it,
And I think when every time you make a logo, every time you go back or you question it and you send it to me, I always be like, it's a statement. It's something that pops, and whatever pops makes a statement to me.
Yeah.
You know.
And like we've brought a lot of content with us from the old channels and stuff, and
Hmm.
like Nintendo Power Block being the biggest one, right? And
Yes.
I really loved our old Power Block logo, the NPB inside the line art switch kind of mock up thing that I made. Like
Uh.
I still love that logo, right? But to really kind of move on and start fresh, you know, people who watch the show or see it on their podcast feeds know about it and like how it's changed. But like, I used the Boss Rush font. I was like, okay, how can I make the statement that Nintendo Power Block is part of this new network, but still feels like its own show, right? So
Yes.
I used the Boss Rush font for the new logo. I was like, how do I make this stand out? How do I get people to notice it's a Nintendo show besides, the words Nintendo Power Block, right? And the simplest thing was I just took the Joy-Cons from the old logo and put it around the word podcast. And I'm like, that's it. That's it. And it turned out, well, I think it turned out pretty good. Like
Yes.
I think it's bold. I think it says, there's a little bit of old, a little bit of new in here, but it's still our show.
You don't know what's funny? Every time that you change the logo, I always felt like it was a new season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seem to be like it's a new season.
Well,
So
I
it's just
mean,
like new season,
in a
new
way,
new ventures.
in a way, Power Block, it is a new season because like I changed the logo when we rebranded the NX show as Boss Rush.
Yes.
And like to me that was like, okay, everything's changing. Let's just change it all. Let's make it all fit. Let's make it all, you know, just kind of be cohesive. And with standard definition and now 1v1, like I've kind of made those logos simple, but they
Hmm.
still fit with the theme of what we're doing with Boss Rush, right? Like it's just kind of like Boss Rush's logo and like the mixture of the bold new modern stuff mixed with like the old timey microphone that we use on the podcast logo, and just using the term standard definition with like a retro style thing. Like it's a really, like, at least in my perspective, like it's a really nice fit of retro meets modern
Hmm.
with our own personal flair. And I'm not just talking about you and me. I'm talking about, Ray and Jesse and the plans we have, and what we want to achieve in the next 3 months, the next 6 months, the next year, the next 2 years, right? Like, you know, we have a lot of content coming this year, which, a lot of it's already in production. A lot of it is already, by the time you hear this, a lot of it is already started and posted and planned, right? And just watching it all come together and fit cohesively for what, you know, as much as we were doing with Nerds Gone Rogue, it never quite felt cohesive. And to watch all these things that we've been planning and doing and just working on for years, like literally years. Ed and I have been doing Pod and Play for years. We've been doing
Yes.
the Indie Show for 2 years now. We've been doing Power Block for years, and Arsenal X and the NX Show and Boss Rush for years. We've been doing this, and to watch it all kind of come together, like, I get kind of emotional because like there's been a lot of times during the last couple years where I just kind of like felt like quitting, like I just want to wrap it up. This is a lot of work to not get anything out of it, right? And I'm not talking like financially or anything. I'm just saying like it's just, is it worth it? Like I argue with people sometimes and just really kind of like get really frustrated, and I spend time away from my wife and kid to do editing and design work and record like gameplay footage for our new intros and everything. And at some point, like it really got to me, especially when I was managing like 3 projects at the same time.
Yes.
Well, really 4, to be honest with you, because I was trying to help manage the Nerds Gone Platinum stuff, and then our stuff with Arsenal X and Nintendo Power Block, and then Nerds Gone Rogue, and then I wanted to try some personal stuff, which I still have a pad over here with stuff that I would like to eventually start doing again personally, like the Disney show that you and I talked about a couple weeks ago. Like,
Yeah.
I would still really like to do a half-hour Disney show or a 45-minute Disney show. Will I get to it? I don't know yet, but it's on my paper. I have an idea. I have a plan for that at some point. I even have a logo made for it. Like, it's ready to go when I start it. But
like I told you, I'm just like, if you need my help or you want me to be on it or whatever, I'm going to the bookstore to buy a book about Disney. I'm going to research the history, because even though Disney wasn't a big part of my youth growing up, I know about it. Like I stated earlier, that I was a Six Flags person, but I used to watch Disney cartoons. We didn't have it as a kid. I didn't have it as a channel because you had to pay for Disney. And when it used to pop on, when it wasn't the squiggly lines, and it used to show it clear, that means you had a week free on Disney. So we were watching like that.
yeah,
But I used to watch like Rescue Rangers and DuckTales and the Gummy Bears, and like Disney stuff was like here in North Chicago, Illinois. It was like Channel 9, which was such a Chicago channel. We would watch Disney cartoons there and stuff. That's how I saw Gargoyles also on ABC when they merged together. But I used to watch my Disney content there. But I did go to Disney World. I did go to Disneyland. I actually got to sing at Epcot Center. That was cool when I was in high school.
yeah. And like that's something I would really like to do someday. I don't know when, because I want to make sure our stuff for Boss Rush is well underway and everything before I even start adding something new to the plan. But I was super excited and was hyped that day after we literally had the conversation about Disney. I was just like, I think I need to go order it, and I may have to just go do it anyways. Be like, I want to talk about theme parks, and if I gotta talk about Disney, I want to talk about Disney because I love, like I said, that Michael Jackson feature ride that was amazing as a kid. Yeah. I just Disney World was such a big part of my childhood, and I honestly, last year at some point, I when I was it was probably over the summer at some point when I was really down for a while about everything we were doing, and just some things were happening that I behind the scenes that I just wasn't I don't know, uncomfortable is the wrong word, but just was really making me down about a lot of things, and we were wrapping up Nintendo Power Block to start the NX show, and that kind of had me down, and other things were happening that got me down, and I was just I still wanted to be creative, but I thought about just leaving the video game space completely. I was like, I want to do something creative. Disney is another cool outlet, and I started watching a lot of Disney YouTube videos and some stuff, and it got me excited for that stuff. But I felt like if I left Nerds Gone Rogue and what we were doing at the time for NX show and everything, like I felt like I was abandoning my friends, and I felt like I was abandoning I felt like I was abandoning the people who we have people write into us a lot that like they listen to us on a weekly basis because they like it's part of their routine, and like I didn't want to let those people down either, you know, and it just, you know, I look, when our focus turned to Boss Rush, when we came up with that name and like the NX show was kind of hitting its stride, I was getting excited for game stuff again. But like the Nerds Gone Rogue stuff really hurt, you know, and it really did hurt, you know, and you know, I'm glad that I didn't give up, because like I am really excited for what, like, watching, like, back to like before all the Disney talk, but like watching like the thumbnails, watching our YouTube channel and our website with the thumbnails kind of coming together. They're all kind of cohesive, and you know, yeah, the shows are kind of color coordinated. Like standard definition is like a off green color. Pow Block is pink, and Boss Rush is this navy blue, and 1v1 will be probably something in the realm of that spectrum, but like they all match and they all kind of come together and they all look like they go together, and like
Yes.
that's something that, like, as someone who has been trying to get everything to kind of come together for years, watch it finally come together like this is like I was looking at it, what, 2 nights ago, I think. Christmas night, I was looking at it and I was like, I got kind of emotional because I'm like, I know it took way longer than it needed to or the way we wanted to, but it's like the way it's coming together now is like really exciting, and I'm glad like I didn't give up, you know.
There was a point that you did step away, due to, you know, personal reasons and stuff, and, you know, holding the fort down and everything. And I kind of like whenever, you know, I introduced the show and I was telling you that, you know, Corey is spending time with his family, taking a break and stuff like that. You know, to me, I never felt like you were running away. It never felt like that. To me, it was just like, you need this break, because physically and mentally you were getting exhausted and it was weighing on you. And I think sometimes, even as a leader, you need to take time for yourself. You know, if at me as a host and just me being a co-host and stuff, in order for even us to grow, sometimes it's cool to let everybody else take the reins and you fall back and recharge. You know, and at it was a time that you did that. You really you sat back and you was able to recharge. And you know, even on Arsenal X and Nintendo Power Block, I didn't have no equipment to do video and stuff, but I sure enough hooked up my mixer, and I sure enough we got that audio together, and I tried to do different things, and I sent it to you, and I was just like, I'm Corey, here's the audio file, and I always tried to make sure that there's a way that even though you may still have to edit and everything, I always make sure that you didn't have to do much work, and hopefully you don't have to do the much work, because you needed to fall back. And if you feel like you can't edit or anything, I would do everything in my power to help you. And
I mean, I really do appreciate that. I just, you know, I know I do a lot more work than most people probably even realize or pay attention to, you know, like, but look, look, I edit the show in a way, like, whether we get one viewer or listener
Hmm.
or 1 million viewers or listeners. It's got to be perfect, right? And you know,
Yes.
our Xbox game, our Xbox Series X and Senua's Saga podcast, that episode on YouTube is our highest performing video. And I know it's probably because like algorithms and title and everything like that kind of all fits into it, but like it was worth it because you know what I do is like, you know, I have the intro saved as like a separate video file that I just insert, right? Like
Yeah.
it's got the music and everything, and like our new intro will probably be debuting. It's probably already debuted by the time you hear this, but I'm working on new intros, right? That's like my goal this weekend is to wrap those up. And so on Pow Block and Boss Rush and Standard Definition, we can kind of just roll with a new intro. But you know, when I record our audio separately from the video, that because like we record the video on Skype because it's the easiest way to get the video. I'm not going to ask everybody to record themselves, right? It's just not going to happen. But I record
Right.
all of our audio separately, and then I'll go in and take the audio that I record and run it through GarageBand, which is the free Mac audio software, and I'll clean up the background noise if there is any. I will go through and clean up mouth noises because when I listen to podcasts, the biggest thing I hate is just mouth noises. I just can't. I just can't. And then I will add a little bit of bass to make sure everybody kind of doesn't sound like they're talking through a tin can, because sometimes not. I mean, this show is pretty good about it, right? Like everybody has a proper microphone and everything, so it's not that
Yes.
difficult. But some of the other shows that I used to record, you know, some people just kind of sounded like they were shouting down a hallway, and got kind of rough to edit sometimes. You know, and I just try to clean up the sound, and then I'll try to line up the sound with our video, which, you know, I have to process the video separately because we have a background. You know, it would be easier if I just had an overlay over us, right? But I want our shows to be watchable. You know, if somebody's like watching it on YouTube, like I want them to enjoy what they're watching. I don't want them to just be watching a Skype video. You know?
Yes.
So I will put it on the background and kind of clean it up a little bit. I'll adjust some of the lighting and the skin tones because, you know, unlike Ed, I'm a very pasty person, so I have to like make you know, us less fortunate souls look less pasty. You know, I'll adjust some of the lighting stuff and you know, just I'll clean up, sharpen up the video or whatever if it's a little blurry or whatever, and then I'll process the video, and then I'll line the audio up with the video. And it's yes, it's a way longer process, right? But like, if people don't complain about like it's that thing where like good sound design in games, right? If you don't notice how if you don't have something to complain about, that sound design is excellent, right? And that's how I kind of view our podcast. If you don't have anything to complain about, I've done my job, right? Mouth noises, chair squeaking, which I know there's probably going to be some in this episode. I'm sorry. I've been fidgety and adjusting things, but I'll try to edit it out, but a lot of it's while I'm talking, so I might not. You know, but if there's something that you don't complain about, then I feel like I've done my job to the best of the ability that I can. And yeah, it takes a long time to do it that way, but at the end of the day, I feel like our shows are relatively well produced with the you know, kind of how I do it, you know, and I want it to be that way. Same with our thumbnails, you know, like I like having pretty thumbnails, you know, it's people are more likely to click on a thumbnail, right? That's wow. I just yanked my headphones out. Whoops. But people are more likely to click on a pretty thumbnail than an ugly one, right? And I know like there's the typical YouTube ones where they're like, where they have like a big reaction from someone that with a glowy outline and just like words across it, right? But like, I want ours to at least look professional. You know, maybe we'll have those when we start doing reaction videos to stuff, or you know what I kind of want to do with these thumbnails for 1v1 is like have a big picture of the person that's being interviewed, right? And really make it stand out. But you know, I want ours to look professional and well done and know what people are about to watch and stuff like that. So yeah, I put a lot of
I'm thinking to myself because I need to buy some new clothes. I got a gift card from JCPenney, so I need to buy some new clothes so I can take some new pictures from out
but like, yeah, I put a lot of extra time into this stuff, and I've created templates and shortcuts to help me reduce the time that it takes, you know, because like when you've been doing it as long as we have, like you find shortcuts, you know, like templates, like the podcast templates are like, okay, I know I got to do this. I'll copy and paste the intro and outro here. You know, the thumbnails are just a template. I just inserted a new photo underneath the old one, right? Like that's done. You know, that kind of thing. That's just kind of standard at this point. But I want Boss Rush games to be not. I mean, besides what we already talked about, it's like being a positive place for people that play games, just to have a place to talk about and hang out and play games. But like, I want it to be as professional as we possibly can.
Yes.
You know, and I feel like we are doing that. I feel like we are doing our job, you know, and that's, I'm very, very proud of the way that Boss Rush has turned out so far. And I know there's going to be a lot of stuff happening in the next couple months with us and content rolling out and things like that. But right now I'm extremely proud, and the work that we've all done to make it happen is you know, I know I've talked a lot about me on the show because it's about me, because it's 1v1, but like I could not have done any of this without any of you guys, you know, and I'm proud of the teamwork that we have. I'm proud of the communication that we have with each other. I'm proud of the you know, in the group chat when you know, sometimes you or Jesse or Ray say something funny or post a GIF or talk about like games that you got, or you know what I mean, and it just kind of like, I needed that today, you know what I mean, like it's just one of those feelings sometimes that like I needed that today, because like I've been working a lot too, you know. There's been a few situations where I work, like where I've had to work longer shifts and be there longer than normal, and you know, I'm not complaining. The paychecks are great. I'm just saying, like, that's put a lot of stress on me too, you know, and I couldn't do any of this without you guys. It's been really fun, and you know, it's kind of like makes me wonder why I was thinking about just like quitting all this. But you know, things I'm proud of right now is like I got back to writing this week. I got back to actually making a proper YouTube video, right? Like a proper video for YouTube consumption with my top 10 video. Like it's not done yet, and I'm really not expecting anybody to watch it. Honestly, I'm more just doing it for like to get better at it, you know, because like I watch Joey Ferris's videos are really well done, right? The videos that Ray posts on Twitter and his YouTube channel are really well done. You know what I mean? Like I respect the people who take the time to create really proper YouTube videos, and I want to do that, you know?
Yes.
And so I'm kind of, it's more of like okay, perfect is a bad word, but like just go with it. I've perfected the podcast formula. I now need to turn my attention to YouTube or, streaming. I need to perfect these things because if we're going to start doing live shows, right?
Yes.
I need to start, okay, where are we streaming? How are we streaming? What are we streaming? And these are the things like I want to start really buckling down on. So, but, I'm really proud of you, and I'm really proud of Jesse, and I'm really proud of Ray, and just I think 2020 is going to be a very positive, growing year for us, and we've discussed a Patreon, at some point this year. We've discussed going to cons and trying to figure out how to do that kind of stuff, and I think our future is very, very bright, and I can't wait.
Yes. Well, before we get to the end of this, I got 5 quick questions for you.
Sorry, it's been sorry. I just kind of started rambling. I just I can't help it. I don't know.
You're happy, and I like when you get in depth and you're happy and you get to express your happiness, because it really just shows the dedication and the passion that you have. And all of this comes from your heart and everything. And I think that's one thing content creators need to remember, that when you're creating and putting stuff out, it always needs to come from the heart. It always needs to be a passion. It's going to be some headaches and stuff, but if you're passionate about it and you're working toward, to make it better and everything, and to get it out there, know that when it comes from the heart, it really feels good.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo something that Ray said on one of the podcasts, because we had somebody write in about streaming and starting a podcast and stuff. And Ray made the best point you could possibly make, is like, don't start this thinking you're going to make money off of it, because you're going to fail instantly. You gotta be passionate about it. You gotta, start with the mindset that, like, this is something I want to do for fun. And as you grow, you start thinking about these other options, and if it's a possibility for you, then you can. But, like, we've been doing this for 5-6 years. We haven't made a dime. I've actually spent a lot of money trying to make sure our shows are great. And I do think, like, just to not to sound like a pardon my language for a second, but, like, not to sound like an ass, but, like, the work that everybody has done over the years, I do think that you guys deserve to be rewarded in some way. And I think our content is we've talked about the Patreon thing, and I think that if we plan it right, I think our content is good enough for something like that in the next couple months or 6 months or whatever, and like when we finally get a schedule down and a plan down. So
Yes.
I just want to reiterate that I'm really proud of everybody.
So, quick fire questions. Number 1. Who is your favorite Ninja Turtle?
Oh, geez. Well, it depends on where we're going with this. Are we talking about the movies, or are we talking about the games?
Just in general. You have to have one.
Well, no, because in the games, you have to pick Donatello because he has the longest weapon, and the range is your ally in a side-scrolling brawler. With that said, Leonardo's my favorite Ninja Turtle.
Okay.
I know that's kind of a boring answer, but I like, in the movies, like the early movies, I should say, he's calm. He is a good leader, and it's something that, like, I do want to be a good leader at some point. But, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's a strong leader, and even through the comics and the various versions of the TV show, like, Leonardo has always been like a good leader, and a student of his craft, and that's what I enjoy about him most.
Donatello has always been my favorite in the movies and the games. Donatello's just outright my favorite.
Well, you have to pick Donatello in the games because the bow staff.
I could beat all the games with any of the turtles. Dude, like literally Turtles in Time on SNES. I can't wait till I come back and we play that because I've been doing a lot with Raph. Like I fight so well with Raph. Yeah, it's crazy. Turtles in Time, not Tournament.
Yeah, no, Turtles in Time is amazing. It's the best Ninja Turtles game by far. Well, I would say Hyperstone Heist is a close second, but Turtles in Time is amazing. By the way.
Question number 2. What is it about survival horror games that keep you away from it?
The horror aspect. Although I have 2 on my backlog challenge this year, so actually I have 3, to be honest with you. But
are you doing Resident Evil 5 on Xbox?
I am doing Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 7, and The Evil Within are the 3 games on my.
Okay.
Because like I want to get over that hump of not like I just don't do spooky, man. I don't do spooky.
Have you ever? Okay, so this is question number 3. Have you ever had a dream from watching a scary movie involving that in this? That maybe one of the reasons.
I mean, I don't know if it's a reason, but I just don't like to be scared. I don't like to be like grossed out. I don't like jump scares. I don't like gore. I just don't do well with that kind of stuff, you know. And I've watched some stuff on Resident Evil 2, and I've seen all of those things, and I'm scared to death to play that game, but I'm going to for boss rush.
Okay, and I think that's
actually
why
I'm mostly doing it for Jesse.
Well, he did Resident Evil 4 for me, so it's
yeah, but he likes scary games. He just Resident Evil 4 is just did not age well, I should say. Not that it's a bad game, it just didn't age well.
Me and him always keep having discussions about that, but I still love him anyway. So that was my 3rd question. My 4th question: why is it that grilled chicken sandwiches at Chick-fil-A are no good?
I didn't say they weren't. Look. Okay, so for those uninitiated people, there's a long-running gag on Nintendo Power Block and the Boss Rush podcast that Ed's first trip to Chick-fil-A, he bought a grilled chicken sandwich. And then I made a semi-racist joke about if he checked the color of his skin when he walked in. But that one's on me. That was a bad joke. But then I told him that nobody goes to Chick-fil-A to get a grilled chicken sandwich. People go to Chick-fil-A for the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich or the spicy chicken sandwich.
Which I owe him.
I
have money ready for you.
To be fair, I have had the grilled chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A. It is not bad. But you go for the spicy chicken sandwich or the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich if you don't do spicy. I like the spicy chicken sandwich, no pickle, with one packet of mayonnaise mixed with 1 container of the Chick-fil-A sauce, and you mix it together. And then what you do is after you mix it together, you put it on the top bun, right? And then you fold the top bun in half so you get full coverage. And then what you do is you take the chicken off the bottom bun, and then you smash the top and bottom buns together so you get full coverage on both sides. That's how you eat it.
I cannot wait till I come down.
Chick-fil-A, man. So good. Oh, now all I want is some spicy chicken sandwiches.
My very last question. If you ever do decide to walk away, or retire. I would say. I won't say walk away. I said if you ever plan to retire, what one thing would you always remember, and what thing would you feel like what kind like history was made? Like what you think would impression that you would have left?
I don't know. If the day comes that we kind of stop doing this, or things happen, families change, that kind of thing. Like, I hope that people come away from watching our stuff just saying they're just some good friends who enjoy hanging out and talk video games, and they're just people who are having a good time doing what they love, and the thing I remember most is, like, besides, like, hurdles and learning a lot of things behind the scenes stuff, like I've made a lot of my best friends have come from doing these shows, and even if we stop, like, say we ended tomorrow, right? Which I hope not, but if we ended tomorrow, like, I don't see us not talking or playing games together, or what I mean. Like, I've made really good friends, and granted, I've lost some friends doing stuff like this. I mean, not like lost them, but like I haven't kept in touch with the people that haven't stopped. But like, I think doing this is different because, like, you and I have become such good friends. Jesse and I have become such good friends. Like, you guys have become probably my best friends, period. Not just on the internet, but like, I talk to you guys more than I talk to people, like, real life friends, I guess you would say, like friends that live close and I can visit and within driving distance. Like, you guys have become my best friends, and that's like the thing I'll have with me until it's time. But I hope I hope when people watch our content and watch our shows, whether it's through Boss Rush games or our old stuff on DNA or NGR or Arsenal X, like, I hope people realize that we had fun doing it and that we did it out of love, and I hope they see the growth that we had, and I hope they see our friendships grow, and like, I hope they see that if you want to start something, like, it may seem overwhelming, but if you want to be creative and do something, just start doing it and good things will happen, and that's what I hope people will take from this.
Well, everybody, that has been another episode of 1v1. Corey, I want to thank you for this interview, for really just showing the passion that you have for content creation and everything. At this time, would you like to or plug anything?
I mean, I guess you can check out the Boss Rush podcast and Nintendo Power Block. I don't really have anything to, like, really plug. I just, yeah, I mean, I guess the thing I would plug is the website, because, like, not a lot of people go to the website to consume our content.
Yes,
but
that's the one thing in 2020 I need to do is promote and actually start putting up some content, written content and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Boss Rush.
I mean, look, the only stuff we've really done on the web online right now for Boss Rush, besides the retro game show, as of this recording, you can get it audio, and like, you can just listen to it, right? Like, that's kind of, I mean, we've always said our podcasts are our bread and butter, and we're trying to figure out ways to expand, like, and be proficient at it. But I would just say, check out our YouTube channel and our website, because like I'm really proud of the work that has gone into those recently, and you know, if actually the one thing I do want to plug, Standard Definition, our new podcast, our new nostalgia and retro podcast that we're doing.
Yes.
The first couple episodes should be up by the time you hear this, I hope. It's the goal, at least. We have plans. We just need to sit down and record them. So
yes.
But yeah, that's it. You know, Ed, I want to thank you for having me on your interview show. It was very nice.
Thank you. Yes, everybody. This has been another Boss Rush Games production. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Thank you guys for subscribing and all the comments that you have left us for various shows and everything. With that, as always, let's play games and let's be better. And we will see you guys next time on 1v1. With that, bye everybody.
Bye.